The camera opens on a grand corporate gala, a shimmering ballroom filled with chandeliers, powerful executives, and walls echoing with laughter. But in the middle of that polished perfection, the story begins with a challenge, one that would silence every whisper, stop every glass midair, and change two lives forever. The CEO, Isabella Grant, was known for her brilliance, her wealth, and her unshakable pride. Her company was worth billions, and her reputation as a ruthless businesswoman left no room for doubt. That night, she walked onto the stage, a stunning gown trailing behind her, and with a mischievous smirk she held the microphone. "We live in a world," she declared, "where talent earns respect. Tonight, let's test that. If anyone here can sit at that grand piano and play Chopin perfectly, I'll marry him." The crowd gasped and laughed. It was a joke, everyone thought. Isabella's standards were untouchable. She knew none of her board members, investors, or guests could rise to the challenge. It was arrogance wrapped in a dare. In the back of the room, leaning on his mop, stood Daniel, a janitor. 45 years old, worn shoes, calloused hands, and eyes that carried the weight of years spent working jobs no one noticed. He cleaned the very hall where the rich celebrated, unseen and unacknowledged. But Daniel wasn't always a janitor. Once he had dreamed of stages, of music, of Chopin's nocturnes flowing from his fingers. That dream had died years ago when poverty forced him to abandon the conservatory and take whatever work kept food on the table for his daughter after his wife passed away. When Isabella's words echoed across the ballroom, Daniel's heart pounded. For the first time in years, his fingers twitched as if they remembered. The guests were laughing, mocking, whispering to each other. But Daniel stepped forward. The laughter stopped. A janitor walking toward the CEO. "Impossible. What are you doing here?" one of the executives hissed. But Daniel's eyes stayed steady, fixed on the piano. "I can play Chopin," he said quietly, his voice calm but certain. The room burst into cruel laughter. Isabella herself smirked, her pride amused. "You," she said, her voice dripping with disbelief. "You're telling me a janitor can play Chopin? Do you even know what you're asking for? This isn't sweeping floors. It's art." Daniel's lips curved into a faint smile. "With respect, ma'am, music doesn't care about wealth or titles. Music only asks for a soul to listen." The room grew strangely quiet. Isabella, curious despite herself, waved her hand toward the piano. "Very well. Impress us." Daniel sat at the grand piano. His worn hands hovered over the polished ivory keys. For a moment the room held its breath. Then it began. The notes of Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major filled the hall, delicate and haunting. Each chord seemed to rise not from his hands but from his heart. Conversations stopped, phones lowered. Tears welled in eyes that had forgotten beauty could come from unexpected places. Daniel's face softened with every measure, as if he were speaking to his late wife, as if every note carried the love he never stopped feeling. The music was flawless, not because of technical perfection, but because it was alive, raw, and human. When the final note faded, silence fell so deep you could hear breaths trembling, and then applause erupted. Guests stood, clapping, some wiping their tears. The executives who once mocked him looked at the janitor with awe. Isabella stood frozen, her arrogance shattered. For the first time, she felt small before someone society had called less. She walked toward Daniel, her voice unsteady. "Where did you learn that?" Daniel's eyes glistened. "I studied once, but life had other plans. Still, music never left me. It was all I had when I buried my wife. It was all I had when my daughter asked why mommy wasn't coming back. It was all I had when this mop was the only job I could find." His voice cracked, but he stood tall. "I clean floors to survive, but I play Chopin to live." The ballroom was silent again, not out of disbelief but reverence. Isabella's face softened, her pride gone. She reached for the microphone but stopped, lowering it slowly. Instead, she whispered almost to herself, "If you play Chopin, I'll marry you." The words she had spoken as a joke now sounded like a vow. Daniel shook his head gently. "I don't need your marriage. I don't need your wealth. All I need is for people to remember that dignity isn't measured by titles. It's measured by the heart." And with that, he stood, picked up his mop and walked away. The story spread beyond the ballroom, beyond the company, beyond the city. People shared it online. The janitor who silenced the CEO, a reminder that talent, love, and humanity can shine in the unlikeliest of places. Isabella herself was never the same again. She began treating her employees differently, opening opportunities for those overlooked. humbled by the man who showed her that greatness often wears the clothes of the unseen. And Daniel. He didn't stay a janitor much longer. A video of his performance went viral. Donations and offers poured in. He opened a small music school for underprivileged children where every child could learn Chopin, Beethoven or Bach, regardless of money. His daughter, standing proudly beside him, whispered one night, "Daddy, Mommy would be so proud." This story, friends, is a reminder: never underestimate anyone. The person you dismiss today might carry a symphony inside them, waiting for the right moment to be heard. If this story touched your heart, if Daniel's music reminded you of hope, resilience, and dignity, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove greatness comes from the most unexpected places. Because sometimes, all it takes is one note of Chopin.